First of all, welcome to everyone. Welcome to our panelists. My name is Max. I work at Songtrust here as a publishing associate. It means I spend most of my day talking to producers and musicians, independent artists, people who own production companies, people who own publishing companies, record labels about music publishing and how to set themselves up, how to collect their money, and just try to give them as much knowledge as possible. This is just, I think, a great opportunity for anyone who's interested in production in music industry to learn as much as possible from some incredibly qualified panelists that we have here. But I think it's time we can introduce our guests, and I'll let every guest kind of talk a little bit about themselves. I think what might be easiest is just me to call you guys out. I just have you guys in a row here on my screen in front, so I'll just go one by one, starting with Liina, I think.
Hi, my name is Liina, or LNA. Based in York in England. I'm a musician, music producer, and I run a YouTube channel called LNA Does Audio Stuff. I'm an Ableton certified trainer, so my channel is obviously a lot about Ableton, but also just about music production and creative confidence and everything, just trying to kind of make sure that everybody has a chance to learn music production in a very fun and easy way. And I also run an organization called Equalize Music Production, and I produce music under the artist name LNA. I think that summarizes it.
Awesome, thank you. I think next in line is Xylo.
Hi everyone, I'm Xylo Aria. I am a music producer and I I also write music under my name, and I'm the founder of Music Production for Women, which is an online learning platform encouraging more women in music production and tech.
Nice. Melvin, you're up next.
Hello everybody, my name is Melvin Darrell. I'm a music producer and audio engineer. I'm currently based in Philadelphia, and I work on projects in like a wide range of genres: hip hop, pop, R&B, some dance music, a little bit of funk. Yeah.
Nice. Brendan.
Hey everyone, I'm Brendan. I go professionally by Brendan G, also the Latchkey Kid. I am a musician, a producer, and studio engineer based in Philadelphia, but originally from Jersey. And I operate primarily as a musician with a producer as my secondary trade. So I'm hoping to provide some value for people who are watching, who play that dual role and perhaps are trying to figure out how they can balance those disciplines and then translate that to collaborations that they work with.
Awesome. And last but not least, Anthony.
What's going on, everyone? My name is Anthony Delgado. I am a studio director at Rec Philly. I also produce and engineer on the side. At Rec Philly, we just provide the tools and resources that creatives need to take their craft and turn it into a career. So we, provide gear, the space, some educational content, definitely a lot for our members. But like I said, me personally, I produce, I engineer. So on the weekends, you could probably catch me in the studio with a couple of artists.
Awesome. Thank you guys for giving us those intros. I think we can sort of jump into the questions. And I mean, got to start off with the basics. How did each of you get into the music industry? And I think for these sort of questions, we can kind of do a bit of a more of a freestyle. Anyone who wants to hop in, just hop in.
I'll start off. I guess you can say, for me, like my strategy of getting my foot into the music industry has really been based around just kind of like working my city. Like I said in my intro, I'm from Philadelphia, and Philadelphia has a very rich history when it comes to music. We, at the moment, we've been hosting Made in America for about maybe like almost 10 years. We have the Roots Picnic. We have great studios like Milk Boy and Cambridge, and just a lot of stuff going on in the city. So my strategy has just been building relationships in Philadelphia, trying to get into as many studios as I can, try to connect with engineers, other producers, and musicians. I go to open mics all the time, and I meet people there. So it's been a lot of relationship building, and that's usually how I get most of my clients. And then also I am a freelance audio specialist at Rec Philly. So Ant and I we know each other. And so as a specialist at Rec, I often will get a lot of members will reach out to me if they need someone to run their sessions, and that'll usually turn into uh, a relationship that we kind of keep going. So like it'll be one session, then we'll continue to build from there. And a lot of times it'll start out as audio engineering, and then it'll kind of transition into like full blown production. So for me, it's just been a lot of networking in the city, and I also have like artists that I work with for over in the West Coast, but a lot of that actually kind of came from Philadelphia in the beginning.
I can actually, Xylo, you unmuted. You go ahead. I saw you unmute. Go ahead.
Thanks, Anthony. So I started off as a singer-songwriter, and I didn't really have any interest in production. And then things have happened in a way that I wasn't really expecting to at the start, which I think a lot of people's career in music ends up that way. And then kind of worked with a few producers. Unfortunately, that didn't really work out well for me, and then I fell into production. And then the more I kind of got into it, the more I enjoyed it. And then started kind of releasing music that I'd produced myself. And just reflecting on that, I was just thinking, it shouldn't have taken me so long to get into production and as this last resort thing. And I think it could have been a lot more fun and accessible if it was kind of presented to me maybe in a different way. So I was thinking, how can I, because I feel like maybe other women might have been in a similar position to what I was in, and I really wanted to show them that it can actually be fun and something that they might enjoy without realizing. So then I became sort of really passionate about this idea of kind of empowering it and teaching women, and started MPW as a result. And that's taken things again in a really different path as well. And so that's been about 3 years that we've been running it so far, and we've had students from like 120 different countries, which is so exciting for me, that it's accessible from a lot of different places. And we've been kind of, as a result, being able to work with some really great brands as well, like music gear companies and things. So I think it's great to just be open to different opportunities, because they can come up in a way that you might not expect originally.
I'll hop in here. So I started, I've been playing guitar for like, since I was 7. So I was always around music. My dad was a musician. He was in a band in the 80s. He's bald now, but he had a full head of hair at one point. So he's in a hair metal band. So music has always been around in my life. And so freshman year of college, I went into college for electrical engineering, and I hated it. I hated every second of it. And so what I would do to escape that, I was producing music on my computer in class, just so that I didn't have to pay attention, which, in retrospect is definitely not a good strategy. Don't do that. But so it got me thinking, and then I changed my major to entertainment and arts management, something a little more aligned with what I wanted to do. And as I started to produce more, at the time I had no connections in music. I was just like a kid with a laptop. And so that naturally brought me to the online kind of game of like selling beats and doing the whole online thing. And while I was doing that, people started to obviously take notice that I was a little more serious about my craft than other people. And so I met this photographer named Harrison Kendall, who used to be a shooter for Rec. And he introduced me to Tim Huff, which is now the marketing director at Rec. And I spoke with him. I got an internship through Tim Montgomery, and that was like sophomore year of college. And I stayed with Rec throughout all of college, because just what was happening at Rec was so unique from my perspective, because I didn't, the only thing that I had an idea of what the music industry was like Drake and Travis Scott and like Quad Studios in New York, and like these big, like, professional, high grade, top of the line studios, and like experiences and people who are around that. And when I went into Rec, and I started working there, I realized like, you don't have to be Champagne Poppy to make a livable earn wait, you know what I mean? Like you can live within your means as a musician, whatever that means for you. And so their mission of, you know, providing the tools and resources to creatives really connected with me because I was that creative. And so I could immediately see and feel the value of being at Rec. And so stayed with them, and then throughout the years, you know, managed to become studio director, and now I just engineer, produce on the side of you know, managing the studios at Rec, which couldn't be more grateful.
Nice. So for me, obviously I started as a performer, like I mentioned, middle school and high school, doing musical theater, stage acting, things like that. And then when I went to college, my junior year, I believe it was, I had an internship at Ultra Music in New York, the EDM label, not related to the festival, but you know, similar sort of music. And I was with the marketing and advertising team there. So, you know, it was the first time as an artist that I got a really good glimpse into what it takes into pushing artists. You know, it's more than just the music being produced really well and hitting the charts. It's like, you know, you got to have email blasts, you got to have marketing campaigns across all social media, you got to make sure that you're sending it out to radio and all this stuff. So it was kind of just like a 6 months crash course into what this is like. And then I took bits and pieces of the information that I got from there to market myself. But also now, just like Melvin, I'm also a certified specialist over at Rec Philly. And all of the stuff that I learned from that internship and also in school as well helped me, you know, basically curate how I conduct my business with other clients and stuff. And, you know, it's still a learning process. I definitely don't know everything that I feel that I need to know. But that's the beauty of it, because trial and error and then collaborating with other people who could perhaps fill in the gaps where, you know, you might lack in an area, someone could fill that gap for you. And you know, just kind of being in this music game of trial and error is really what it's all about. So yeah, still in the game. If you find yourself in Philadelphia and you want to book a session at Rec Philly, I'm your boy. Melvin is your boy. Anthony is your boy. Hit us up. We're all really, really good at what we do, and we love and we're passionate about music. Yeah.
Hey, hi. Yeah, so basically I started music like, well, I come from a musical family, and so I was kind of classically trained when I was a kid. So I started violin and piano and orchestras, choirs, all that jazz, like long time, all my childhood. And I was like 19, I was like, I'm never gonna be a musician, I'm gonna be an actress. And then that worked out well. So then I was 21, moved to Glasgow, fell in love with electronic music scene, and realized that actually this is what I'm meant to do. That's why I never fell in love with music before the same way, you know. And when I was kind of doing it in a very classical world, and now I can, you know, loop violin and distort it. And then I got to study commercial music, so I did my undergrad in Scotland. And in there, I figure out, wow, there's studios here. And I was like, hello buttons, hello, all the knobs. I'm liking this. And I figured out that I'm a nerd. And you know what? My brothers and my dad are nerds. And I'm like, nobody told me that I'm also a nerd. And then I went to my master's degree in York to study music production. And there, you know, I was coding plugins, and I was suddenly learning like all kind of amazing engineering and, you know, everything. And from there, after that, I started my YouTube channel pretty much like, I would say half a year after I graduated from my master's. And I've been doing now YouTube for 3.5 years, posting once a week. And I would say that got me my career. Like, as much as obviously, like, I studied hard and I do, you know, I learned so much. I was teaching in a university, actually. Yeah, I was a lecturer for a year. I forgot that. And then obviously, like from there, it was just this learning curve of, becoming a certified trainer for Ableton and, doing my own music, and then just building the, YouTube channel and the following, running Patreon, running my, running a company, Equalize Music Production, and starting to kind of teach others, but also starting to kind of realize that practice what I preach, start to do a lot more my own stuff and like figure out who I am like as a music producer. And I feel like that is the way of just now doing many different things. And I'm currently writing a book, and it's just like my career and like coming to music industry is just becoming this fusion career, which is kind of cool and overwhelming at the same time. And but I freaking love it. And yeah, that's how I got it. Got
Awesome,
into it.
guys. Thank you so much for sharing that, guys. And this first question, we've already touched upon so many super important topics, from different pathways into being a producer, gender imbalances in this particular field, distorting violins, always very important as well. But I just want to piggyback off of something that Anthony said, which is this idea that to make it in music you got to be a superstar, right? Which is obviously not true. There are ways to sort of make a good living off of music, if you just know how to organize yourself, know how to sort of set up your royalty streams, your revenue streams. And so based on that, I just want to open the conversation up to music publishing and ask you guys specifically what your setup is, where you guys are right now in terms of music publishing, and whether or not you guys had sort of a eureka moment. I talk to a lot of producers, and oftentimes I'll get this moment where they're like, oh my God, I didn't even know this whole world existed. How is this completely flown over my head? And I'm wondering if you guys had a similar moment, if this is something that you kind of discovered by accident, and once you did discover it, what steps you took to make sure that this was something that you were capitalizing on properly. And since there's so many of you guys, I think I'm just going to run down the line again, and we can start with Anthony, since he's the one who prompted this.
Cool. Yeah. So right now I'm actually with Songtrust. Yeah. Shout out to you guys. It's super easy. Like Songtrust really does make it like really easy. But like, so for me, when I was first getting into into production, I was taking the route of selling beats online, because I just was making hip hop beats, and that was like just a very natural thing that I saw, right? I saw the opportunity. And a lot of the producers in that space, a lot of the influential producers, Curtis King, DJ Payne One, Music Entrepreneur Club, like they all preach a lot of this. They preach collecting your royalties and making sure you're set up with a publisher and all that stuff. So I had an idea of what went into it, but there's like a big difference between reading about push-ups and actually doing them. You know what I mean? And so when I actually started to put out music, and not a lot of music, I only like officially release music with artists that I really believe in. Those are the kind of the ones that I want to put my name on. But that whole process, like when I was going through that for my first couple of releases, I was like, wow, like there is a lot that you have to do to set up for one song to get out the door. Like there is so much. And once I started going through it, I realized that there were like little parts of the process that I was just not doing correctly. Like that I was probably leaving money on the table. I mean, it's, so far in the past now, I don't care. It's a couple dollars, whatever. But like, in retrospect, had I been a little more diligent and more efficient with the way that I registered my music to go out, I think I would have been collecting more royalties now. But like I said, I'm not too worried about it. Those songs never really went crazy anyway. But yeah, I think Songtrust just makes the whole process really easy.
Glad to hear that. Thanks for the big ups, Anthony. Appreciate it. Liina, what about you? How have you set yourself up?
Sorry, there's some kind of bug here, like in my room. So if something like if I look like this, then you know what's happening. So I am currently completely self-publishing, and one reason for that is that I'm so focused on like my channel and putting out content that I've literally just not have even had the time to like really sit down and like think about, you know, about every single factor. Like I'm kind of like, Xylo is my manager actually. So it's kind of funny, like, so Xylo came to my life and they're like, so she's like, oh yeah, you need to do also this and this and this to actually earn money. And I'm like, oh, right. Yeah. Oh, so like I'm so focused on doing music and putting out things that I'm actually like, even though I studied music business and I know about, the different factors of royalties and stuff, it's so easy to kind of slip out of that and, forget about all these different factors. And I think I'm in the process of like making sure that I am definitely covered. And I think I definitely have a lot to improve in that. And, the funny thing is that we just had this kind of conversation is that, I have thousands of, views on my channel where I use my own music, but that's not even though the channel is monetized, I'm not monetizing my own music as well as I should. And, what happens quite often, which for other people, but I guess what's happened to me is that I focus so much on creating content that I'm forgetting to monetize everything I do. But there's so many ways to do it because I've been focusing on YouTube monetization and, like sponsorships and these different kind of deals. And, and then you think about, oh, I have a new single coming out. Oh, I need to do a live performance for that. I need to do this and this and publishing and, social media posts and reels and TikTok. And you're just like, and so I've noticed that there's definitely certain points of publishing that I'm kind of neglecting because I'm so my headspace is basically too full. So that's why it's something that I'm working on currently to trying to kind of figure out best ways to maybe make it easier for myself and like more time, that everything's sorted out better and I can focus on the music, but still have it all covered. So that's where I am right now.
Yeah, I think that's a fairly common thread. You hear that a lot. I mean, being a musician is obviously a full-time job. And then being a business person for your music is then another full-time job on top of that. And music publishing specifically can be insanely unapproachable, even to someone. I mean, I studied music business as well in college. And I found I had the same problem after. I was like, okay, I kind of know what's going on, but not really.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm actually thinking like, what did I do on those classes? Like, do I actually remember? But also what's happening is that when I did my degree, that was almost 8 years ago or something like that. And the world actually changes super fast. So my job, what I'm doing right now, wasn't even talked about in my university classes. So the way that the world and the music business is working, like they could have not even told me how to do my job. Because right now, doing social media and doing all these things, I'm thinking, okay, everybody talks about how to get into music industry, but there's nobody telling what to do when you are in it. There's nobody like helping you like, oh, and then you need to get a manager. How do you get a manager? How do you get a publisher? How do you get sorted out how to do, budgets? Xylo's helping me that. But you know what I mean? Like there's just so much to learn while you're already doing it and then doing it 24/7 anyway. So it is quite overwhelming, but it's also obviously cool. But yeah.
Definitely. Everything you said is very, very true, of course. Since you brought up Xylo, I mean, Xylo, obviously through music production for women, you have, I'm assuming, a hand as well in helping artists kind of come to grips with this situation. Do you have any sort of unique insights into how this is done? What do you tell people about publishing when they come to you and like, I don't know what's going on?
Yeah, so it's funny because I was also in that I don't know what's going on for a long time, and I feel like I've heard how this works with the rights and things at least 20 times explained to me by so many different people, but it just never really stuck in my head. And then I actually had a conversation with Jon, who's a producer out of Atlanta, who's with Songtrust, and he was like, if you have a podcast and that kind of thing, if you're using your music on the podcast, you're probably missing out on publishing rights as well, especially if you have that on the YouTube channel and things. And I was like, oh yeah, I do have both those things, and I'm not doing anything about that. So then I actually joined up with Songtrust as well. So so it's been, I guess, a little while, and just still uploading all the music in there and things. And that's when kind of that, it was sort of that conversation that was a bit of a catalyst, and that's what made me think as well with Liina, it's probably something that's quite important and we need to look into it. So so I think it can come up in different ways, and maybe a bit later than you would have liked in your career, but as long as you find it at some stage to sort this stuff out.
Yeah, it's definitely never too late. I mean, better late than never is kind of the saying here. And also, I just quick shout out to the people in the chat who are just dropping knowledge to other people attending. Really appreciate that. What about you, Melvin? What's your publishing situation like? And how did you get into it? Did you also have like this eureka moment?
So in the intro, I kind of like skipped a portion of my life. I forgot to mention that I went to undergrad at the University of Pittsburgh, and I studied accounting. And then from there, when I graduated, I had a job as an auditor with PNC Bank in Philadelphia. So I guess you can kind of say like I had some of the discipline to manage my affairs in, I guess, a good enough way. So I've been self-published for quite some time. I'm a member of ASCAP, and then with a lot of music that I've been doing, luckily it's been kind of going through DistroKid. So the process has been really easy to just kind of like, make sure that my percentages are getting loaded into the account under DistroKid, and then the payments were just kind of coming to me. So I would go through and just check everything out to make sure everything was good. But I will say that I heard about Songtrust probably like a year or two ago, and I've just been like reading through everything. And I'm a nerd. I read a lot of the stuff that I know about music really kind of came through books and like online stuff. I read a whole lot. Like I have like a serious book collection over there with a lot of things. So I came across a really good book that talks about publishing, and I read the entire book, realized it was really hard to grasp, it was way over my head. So when Songtrust fell into my lap, I kind of started like going through and reading everything. And I think this is kind of crazy timing because I'm actually ready to move away from managing that part of it myself, because I'm realizing that there's so much in there that I could possibly be taking advantage of. And now that I'm kind of in a space where I'm working with artists who are starting to like, get some pretty good streaming numbers, also like on the global front, it's something that I know I can't really handle on my own. So I will be signing up with Songtrust to, get that off of my back so I can let the pros handle all of that good stuff. So I guess you can say there wasn't really like an aha moment for me in general when it comes to like publishing and everything. Like I came across the books, I read it, I was familiar with it when I was in college, but over time, just as you kind of see things, there's so much stuff that we have to do as producers. And I know we'll get into that with one of the future questions, but there was I kind of felt like there was a point where now that I'm focusing on publishing and everything, it's time to just kind of like move that off so I can really get into just creating music and letting someone else handle, so I'm not losing money.
Definitely losing money. That's the clincher, obviously, right? And yeah, very, very important, of course, if you're also engaging with a lot of global audiences, getting international streams and stuff like that. Trying to do that by yourself is a nightmare, and in some cases, essentially impossible.
Yeah.
Finally, Brendan, you have a sort of a unique background in the fact that you worked sort of at Ultra, started kind of on the business side of things. Were you exposed to publishing at all at this stage in your journey in the music industry?
Sort of, not necessarily with Ultra, but throughout college itself. I had an industry class that I was taking. I went to school for production and performance. But I was like, hey, I need to take some industry classes at some point so I could figure out what the hell's going on in the industry. I can't just like be musician focused only and let everyone handle my stuff, because then, you know, I need accountability for my own money and my own stuff. So yeah, exactly. And so, you know, sometimes in class, you know, something what Liina was saying, which I was nodding my head to, was how when she was in school 8 years ago, the stuff that made sense and applied then doesn't apply now. And we were kind of when I was taking this class, might have been like 2015 or something. And during that time, the industry was going through like a lot of changes, and it seemed like on a weekly basis. So every time we would come into class, the professor would be like, hey, I had this lesson, but we're going to spend the rest of the class talking about what just happened in the industry. You know what I mean? And it was just like kind of like free flowing and free thoughts. So I got a lot of information from that. But actually, because I am with Songtrust as well as BMI, I found out about Songtrust with the producer Kato on the track. He did a, I guess it was like a studio session tour on the East Coast. I think it was 2018, might have been 2019. And he came to a studio in Philly, and there were 2 representatives from Songtrust with him. And the beginning of the session, before we even got into the music side, was basically Kato and these 2 representatives talking about Songtrust, basically breaking down like how even if you are with a PRO, you're still not taking advantage of all the royalties that you can be, and how Songtrust makes it like simple. So that was the first time I had heard about it, and I was like, let me look into that. Ended up signing up and you know, just using Songtrust to register my music, and then having Songtrust take care of the heavy work of sending it out to whoever. Because I don't know if there's any artists here, or you know, anyone who's tried to register stuff through BMI, but it is, to me, it's such an antiquated, convoluted like process. You know, I'm used to it now because I've used it so much, but for someone who's new to it, it's not a very intuitive. You know, it's kind of like it makes you take a second and be like, like I should get someone more advanced and who knows what they're doing to fill this out. I don't know if I'm filling this out correctly type stuff. But I don't feel that same way with Songtrust. Songtrust just simplifies the process. The interface is nice. I was actually just logged into it today, you know, seeing how all the royalties are shown like on pie charts and graphs and stuff, like is just a lot more of a visual treat, and it makes me, you know, gravitate to the platform more. So yeah, and I'm not just saying that because I'm on the panel here. Like I genuinely use Songtrust. It's super dope, and I definitely recommend it.
And no one here has been coerced or prompted to say all these nice things about Songtrust. This is just this is them. It's just that awesome. But yeah, I think Brendan, you touched upon another layer of unapproachability to this whole thing. Not only is like the knowledge inaccessible, but once you do know what you're supposed to be doing, how you're supposed to be doing it is also difficult and convoluted. So moving on to something, so let's get more of the meat of this publishing situation. You guys are all, you know, for the most part, producers. You're working with a lot of different artists. And I just want to get your insights onto what kind of deals are you typically signing with these people that you work with? What is the nature of your relationships? Does it vary a lot? And then importantly, as kind of like a sub question to that, because this is so important to me personally, but in general, how the split conversation works with you guys, because it can seem like a bit of I don't want to say unapproachable, but a lot of artists find it awkward to kind of bring that topic up, producers especially. I find in my experience, find it something that is kind of awkward to bring up. You know, you're in the studio, it's a great session, you're in the heat of the creative moment, and then someone goes, okay, but like, can we sign these documents, please? How do you guys approach that conversation? Have you guys ever had any pushback when you've talked about splits? Has someone gone to you, hey guy, come on, we're your friends, we trust each other, right? And how do you react to something like that? And I think we can again start with Anthony, and we'll just move down the line.
Yeah, so I've definitely had some bad experiences when it comes to splits. You know, I worked with this one guy. We knew each other for a few years before we started working together, and I didn't charge him for the studio time. Like, you know, this was, I remember talking to Mel about this actually when it happened. Yeah, I know. But so, you know, I did like all this work for free, literally didn't charge him anything. And I figured that since we had known each other for so long and we both put so much work into the song, that it would just be, you know, easy 50-50 split when it comes time. Like, let's just cut it down the middle and keep it moving. But he really wanted an extra 10%. Like, he really wanted a 60-40 split. And I was like, after days of going back and forth with him, it was at that moment where I was like, all right, like, have the extra 10%, but don't ever contact me again to work. Like, it's that bridge, that door is closed for you now. And so after that experience, I either only engineer as a work for hire. People can hire me as an engineer for 10% on the record. And I tell this up front, like, when people ask me for my prices, this is what I say. And if you want to work with me in a production capacity, I don't care what we do, you know, when we do it, how long it takes, everything is 50-50 for me. And if they don't agree with that, then I'm sorry, we're probably not going to work well together. Because for me, it's really not about the money at all. Like, I don't, extra 10%, like, what's that? A couple, like $10, you know what I mean? Like, it's not about the money. It's really just like, do you respect me enough as a producer to understand that, like, what I'm bringing to the table is valuable and is worth half of your song? You know what I mean? And just that it's really, for me, like I said, it's really all about respect. It's like, can we just forget about, you know, trying to divvy up who added what hi-hat and just, you know, create good music and cut it down the middle when it's time to release. And for the most part, that has been working out for me with the people that I work with. They are very respectful of me. They understand why I move the way that I do. And your real friends will be more than happy to give you 50%. Like, that's how it works. So if your friends are telling you, like, no, we're all right, like, it's fine, they're not really looking out for you. Like, the real friends will make sure that you get paid. Like, I want to see my friends win.
Damn, thanks for that, Anthony. And just quickly, since you mentioned a work for hire, then like a percentage deal, just for those in the audience who might not know exactly what a work for hire is versus when you sort of split a percentage on something, what is a work for hire?
Yeah, so work for hire just means that you are getting paid for your time in that session, and you do not own anything on that piece of music. So
awesome, thanks.
Yep.
Liina, what about you? Any nightmare situations?
Actually, not in that scale. No, I think why that is because I would say, okay, when you enter to the industry as a woman, there is a certain level of I'm avoiding those spaces where I might be it sounds really weird, but there's a certain level of I like my space. I like my studio because I feel very like this is what happens quite a lot of with female producers, is that we don't tend to go into big studios and find into those environments where you kind of go more into collaborational worlds. I personally have found that in myself because you are constantly on an edge. You're constantly fighting. You're constantly proving yourself. Anyway, I'm there to produce. I'm not there to prove myself every single minute. Like the amount of times I feel like I just need to print out my degree papers and my Ableton certification just to show like what I can do, like what my experience is. So in certain level, I'm not putting myself into the collaborational situations a lot. And I haven't put myself. This is something that I'm now going towards. So I'm definitely wanting to be more collaborative now because I feel a lot more confident in myself. I don't know if this makes sense, but so those kind of like, let's go to studio and then we figure out, let's make a song together and then figure out the cuts. That's not where I've ever worked in that situation because I don't put myself into that situation. But how I have worked is work for hire. So, you know, someone asked me to produce a song, I do that. But then what I also do is that if I produce, because I produce for myself, songs and my own artistry, And if I want someone, example, to do, on my example, my latest single, no, I'll do it. There's a violin solo. And for that, I asked my friend to do like a loop and then a couple samples. And obviously, I appreciated her artistry. So we agreed on shares. But that's something that I came to her as, hey, here is something that I would like you to do. Here's this percentage. Would that be okay with you? And she was like, yeah, totally. So it was just kind of like, if I go to a collaboration, nowadays, like, it's always like, I want to agree everything front, like put it out there already as like, this is where we are standing. So this will be my song. And you're coming here as a instrumentalist or something, as a composer. And then we can agree on that. And then we know where we're standing. But I think, so now on, I feel like, if I'm going to be in that situation where I'm making a song with somebody, it's definitely going to be agreed before we even start making it. It's like, where's the contract? What's where are we standing here? Am I here just a producer? Are we here as equals making a song and art together? So where's the rights? So I'm definitely I feel quite, why I said that about that other experience of not putting myself into this situation, why I mentioned that is also because I feel there's a certain defense mechanism already, even just coming to the industry. So I think that goes also into agreeing collaborations and kind of protecting myself, I guess, so that I know where I'm standing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And Xylo, if you can expand on sort of how being a woman in production can kind of certainly increase the barriers that you have to sort of establishing yourself as a producer, maybe, making it clear what you want, making it unapproachable. Do you have any scenarios where that's happened to you personally, or, through music production for women, you've come up with a situation where you've had to sort of help another person out, confront this type of situation?
Yeah, so I was often in the kind of artist seat working with other producers, and there were so many times there's this kind of crazy power dynamic that you feel like you just have to, and it's silly now, I wouldn't kind of stand for it now, but you feel like you just have to kind of make this producer happy, because without them, they can completely sabotage your project. And I feel like you deal with a lot of bad behavior, and one of the kind of producers was like, oh, I own half of this song, so you can't do this and this and this. And I don't know, it's just crazy. I'm like, don't we want the best for the song? So why do you not want it out? I don't know. It was just, so these kind of situations you deal with, unfortunately, too often, and that's why, and it's just a sad situation where I was like, well, I guess I can't work with producers now, because this has happened so many times that I just have to do it myself. So I think just for all, and there are some great, of course, producers out there that wouldn't behave like this, but I would just say with everyone, just respect your artist as well. Just at the end of the day, you're creating something beautiful, and you want the best for that piece of work. So from that, for me, and this kind of situation doesn't really come up with me at the moment. I'm more, producing my own music and kind of teaching other people as well. But to avoid this stuff as much as possible, just to have that conversation as early as possible is great. And like Anthony said, 50-50 is just, it makes sense, and it just shows respect for everyone as well. And just come into every collaboration or any situation that you're working in with respect for everyone else that's in the room, is just really, really important. So and it's a bit sad. A lot of our students have dealt with this situation multiple times, so they are kind of in the situation that Liina said, that I'm not working with other producers anymore. So hopefully we can see that that change a little bit, but just going forward with respect and yeah, with the splits conversation, even if it's awkward, just kind of just have it up front if you can.
And nothing is ever going to be as awkward as you getting into a fight with somebody like later down the line when money gets involved. So just if you think it's bad, imagine losing an actual friendship over it, which is obviously the worst case scenario as soon as money gets involved. Do you think common decency, simple decency like this would not be required to like explain to people? But clearly there's assholes in every industry, man. Gotta say it. Yeah, what about you, Melvin?
I usually try to go with the 50-50 or even split situation. And fortunately, a lot of people who I've collaborated with on projects where I'm like doing production and everything, they've all been cool with that for the most part. I've had some situations where I like an artist may have tried to just like flex and not really actually give me anything. So like one particular situation, I eventually avoided it, and I'm happy about it. But when we were kind of like going through like the initial like business process, just kind of like talking it out like pre-production and figuring out what we would do for the record and everything, this artist reached out to me. So the split conversation came up, and they asked me what I felt like I should get on the project, provided that we move forward. And I said, I think I should get an even split. And then they quickly just kind of like shifted like their energy and basically kind of said, I don't understand why you think you deserve 50% of my song, because I'm coming to you with the lyrics, and as the vocalist, I'm coming to you with the melody as well. So I really didn't want to argue with this individual about it. I kind of felt like at this point, like if we're already kind of having this kind of tension, it's not going to be a good situation. So it'd be best for me to just walk away from it before we actually exchange money and all that kind of stuff. But my response to them was, you never really know what a song is going to do for a listener. You don't know what part of the song is really going to take off. And if you're doing the vocals and the lyrics, and I'm bringing the music, I don't understand why you think I'm not contributing to the song. Otherwise, you can just put out an acapella. And last time I checked, people aren't really, streaming and downloading acapellas and going to concerts just to hear acapellas. They want to hear full songs. And I mentioned to the person that when you think about the song Billie Jean, I always go back to this song when it comes to like the value of a producer and musicians and whatnot. Michael Jackson, we all know he's one of the greatest, and great lyrics, great vocals. The performance is phenomenal, but everyone knows that bass riff. Everyone knows Louis Johnson's bass riff on that song. So that goes to show that the music that we're providing as the backdrop for the vocals, it matters. I'm not gonna say what matters more, but in my opinion, I think that 50-50 is the way to go. It's the best route. It saves arguments. So for me, I just I have that split conversation up front, and I can tell what the situation will be like with that artist based on how they respond to it. And I'm not like, it's not a hard and fast rule for me where like it has to be 50-50. That's my preference, and I do agree that that's the most respectful way to go about it. I'm willing to budge and take less on a situation for the sake of making some good music with people, because there's been artists that I really wanted to work with and they wanted a little bit more, and I was kind of like, whatever, it is what it is, and I jumped in. But I kind of just get a feeling based off of how people kind of talk around that whole thing, and if they start to devalue music, then I just back away.
It's pretty wild to me to think that the person told you that he was coming to you with the with the lyrics and the melody, and that somehow made the beat worse. Yeah,
that's literally the same as me too.
That's wild, especially because when I listen to any music, I focus on the melody personally way more than I do on the lyrics most of the time.
Yeah,
or like the underlying beat way more. Especially in today's day and age where beat making is so central to so much of the pop and,
right.
And popular music that's around today. I'm staggered, honestly.
When you listen to like really big hits, there's hooks everywhere. There's so many different parts of the song that contain something that's catchy that a person will sing. So yeah, it's a touchy situation to try to say what's more valuable, in that particular record.
No. Yeah, I think definitely going the 50-50 route is the most sensible solution, because otherwise you spend the time arguing, well, I did this a little bit more and this a little bit more, but it makes no sense.
Yeah. And I
Uh,
feel like you hold back more. It's kind of like if you're like in a group project and um if you're like fighting to get like 50% or whatever, you're fighting to get a certain percentage, you want 60 and you want to make sure that they get 40, you might start to like try to dominate the song in a way where like, let me make sure I get the hook and let me get the bridge just so I can get the highest percentage. And that's just not genuine, you know?
Not at all.
At that point, you're not really approaching the song with the best intention of making that song great. You're just trying to get as much as you can on the record so you can get the highest split. And that's just not good business.
Yeah, I feel like at that point, I think it becomes more of an ego thing, right? You just want to make sure that it's more about you, and that's never conducive to good music ever.
Right.
Can I just say that I feel like one of those things in those conversations is that I feel like there's a lot of misunderstanding from artists' sake what producers are. So I feel like why they don't feel it's justified is because they think we are these magical creatures who can just bring like all the instruments and beats and like out of somewhere. They don't really understand maybe how much craft, how much knowledge, how much goes artistry. Like maybe they see it as a technical aspect instead of artistry aspect, and that they don't see it maybe as an artistic technical aspect, and how much knowledge you need to actually, that it's not only artistic knowledge, but it's like you literally need to like learn signal and like every aspect of physics, like sound physics to make that be. And I think there's misunderstandings.
Yeah,
like,
totally. I totally agree.
You kind of want to go sometimes. Okay, you do it then. You sit there. Go ahead. You do it. Wild. All right. I can't believe this has gone by so fast. So before we wrap things up, obviously I want to get Brendan's thoughts on this. So let me know what you think on this whole conversation, Brendan. Then I think we can move into sort of the final section of this.
Yeah.
Of this panel.
Yeah, right on. I agree with Melvin, pretty much what everyone said up to this point. 50-50 seems to be a pretty, standard way that I go about it. In the past, when I was first starting producing for people, I wasn't confident in my abilities. So, if they would come in and I would engineer their session and produce at the same time, the split conversation wouldn't necessarily happen, because in my mind I'm like, oh, they're going to pay me for the beat, or for the lease of the beat, or they're going to pay me for the studio time. I'm already making money. Who's to say this song blows up X, Y, and Z? But as I've matured and as I've gotten better at it, I've had those conversations. One time with a client I was working with many moons ago, we had that conversation at the end of the session. And I was like, hey, so I'll send you like an MP3, but if you want the wave and the track outs, let's talk about how are you releasing this? How are we going to do royalties? Oh, I figure I'll pay you for the studio time and for the beat, so then we good, right? I'm like, no, we not good. Like, nah, because you're still, my beat is going to be used in perpetuity. That's like if I paid you for a verse and then the song blows up. All right, I paid you for the verse, so there you go. I'm gonna just use it forever. Like, it doesn't work like that. And then so his manager texted me like maybe 2 days later, and he was like, yo, you think you could send back like half of the money we gave you for the studio session, because you haven't given us the wave yet, and we need that. I'm like, can you give me my time back? Like, what do we I literally like spoke to him like a child. I'm like, I can't believe you're asking me this. Like, your artist doesn't want to give me my percentage on the song when it's released, and now you want half of. So I was just like, so clearly that relationship didn't last long. But and then just real quick, going into what Liina mentioned, producers are so multifaceted. We are not beat makers, right? I mean, that's part of our skill set, but we're composers, we're arrangers. We have the capacity to envision what the song is going to be once it's released into the world. And since we have that capacity, we can then help make songwriting decisions, lyric decisions, melodic decisions, harmonic decisions that maybe the artist hadn't thought of before. So, in addition to 50-50 splits, you pay me for my engineering time and you pay me for any beats that I give you. I also ask for songwriting credits as well. Whether I am adding lyrics or whatnot, I consider my input to be valuable enough that I can get songwriting credits too. And usually people are like, okay, but I wrote the song. And I'm like, no, you wrote the lyrics. Like, just have a session with me and understand why I'm saying I want songwriting credits. And usually after one session, they're like, oh, wow, like I didn't expect you to be so thorough and so like, have such a intuitive eye about, what this is. Like you introduced me to things that I didn't think about before. And, that's what I do. And that's what we do as producers. We like I mentioned earlier, we fill in those gaps that artists don't necessarily see because maybe they're just focused on my song's got to sound this way and the EP's got to come out like this and the color's got to be like this and it has to come out on this date at this time because this is my da-da-da-da. And it's just like, I get it, but let me take some of my expertise and let how a listener might digest this, you know what I mean? And once I impress my abilities like that on them, they have no problem with the 50-50 splits. They're just like, hey, like you did your part and you helped this become what it is. So thankfully no problems as of late.
Brandon, I don't think anyone could have said it better. Thank you for that very, very passionate, rightfully so, explanation of what a producer is, which is no less than a songwriter, a very qualified, both musically and technically, a songwriter. So I think that's actually the perfect way to sort of end the panel section. I just briefly, before we sort of move on to the ending bits, since we have three, it seems like very satisfied Songtrust members here, and potentially two future Songtrust members, I just want to go over quickly to the people who are attending, explain to them a little bit what Songtrust does and how Songtrust can help you kind of sort out this mess that is music publishing. So basically, and I explain this for a living, essentially. So I'm going to try to keep this as simple and bare bones as possible. But basically, your publishing royalties are collected on the local level by societies called performance rights organizations. If you want to collect all your royalties globally, you would have to become a member of every performance rights organization and every mechanical rights organization. And if you don't know what those two are, performance royalties and mechanical royalties, don't feel bad. Very normal. Hop over to Songtrust. You'll get some resources at the end of this presentation, and we'll tell you all about it. We'd love to. Collect it on the local level. So if you want to collect these royalties, you have to become a member of essentially every society in which your music is being listened to, and then register your songs individually with all those different societies, usually through a publisher. You can't just affiliate directly as a songwriter, which, as you can probably imagine, is a nightmare and in some cases borderline impossible. What Songtrust does is your publishing administrator, very straightforward, handles all of that for you. You become a member with us, you register your songs once. We take those registrations, we make them to the largest publishing collection network in the music industry, period. Audit your registrations, collect all the money that you've got sitting there for you, and just pay it out to you through your Songtrust account. It really is as easy as that. So as unapproachable and as foreign as music publishing can sound, I promise you Songtrust is going to make it a lot easier. The success of Songtrust, as you can see here, I think clearly speaks to how much of a pain point this is in the industry. Something like 99%, we call them the 1% of musicians, producers, have a publishing deal, which means that kind of leaves 99% of creators who don't have access to one essentially not able to collect any of their royalties. And that's exactly the problem that Songtrust tries to solve. So up to date, we work with 350,000 songwriters, and that number grows every day. We administer 3 million different songs, again, growing every day. And we obviously increase our sort of royalty collection every year. The digital music industry, as has been alluded to in this panel, is shifting basically every day. Every year, it feels like there's a new app or a new platform or a new monetization opportunity. And that just means there's more royalties available for artists. And if you have someone like Songtrust, watching out for you, making sure that money's getting collected, you can sleep a lot sounder at night, knowing that you're not losing any money on the publishing side, at least.